Okay, so here's the white sponge. We're going to do a gentle tip tap over the top of that pink. And then we're going to go with the little bit of purple. And see if we can gently blend those 3 layers back in. Now it looks like it's already got a little more blushing than the other side. So I'm going to remedy that by adding a little bit of intended blush onto the second side to try to match the colors. It's a sweet little kit. I really like it. She's got such a sweet little innocent face. Alright, so that's pretty close to matching now. Tragedy averted. We've fixed the tweak. Alright, so the head shading is done for this particular layer. And you don't want to add too much at a time, otherwise bad things happen and under layers start baking or wiping off. That happened on this side, I would guess, because I probably was rough and put it against the towel too roughly and it wiped off the layer. They were baked yesterday, so that should not have happened, I suppose. I have to be a little more careful. Even though I've made 400 plus dolls, you always have to remind yourself to be careful. Alright, so I'm going to go from the head to her limbs and do the underlayers on her limbs. So we have her 2 little hands and 2 little legs. And again, these are just the underlayers, the shading that start bringing these particular things to life. Let's see. I'll zoom in a little bit so you have, zoom out so you can see more what we're doing. Alright, so this is my mixing paintbrush. I'm going to add some of this wet stuff onto the lid again. And for the pad of her foot, you start at the toe with a big toe and you draw a kind of a smear from the big toe to the pinky toe, and then from the pinky toe down to the heel. And this creates the pad of their foot. And then you take a clean blending sponge and you gently tap that and blend it until its edges are comfortably blended in, so there's no lines or stiff edges. There our little foot blending is. It makes her look like she's been running around barefoot. Cute little thing. I'm going to give her a little bit of color to the bottoms of her toes where they would naturally touch the ground. And instead of the sponge, I'm going to gently tap that in with the paintbrush. And look at all the different sides. You don't want to accidentally leave a big blobby paint spot. Okay, so for that side, that is the underlayer of your pad of the foot. So you can move on to your small creases on this one that we want to have lined. And that's the back side of the knee, or I'm not sure what the legal term or technical term of it is. The back side of the knee crotch, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, that's what it is. Blend that in gently. And I'm going to come back and do the toes a different trip with the details. So that is for this layer, that's all I'm going to do. So we'll catch up the other little foot. I boo-booed on this hand, so I have to fix that before it sets. go. So from the pinky to the big toe, and from the pinky to the heel, and then blend. Let me get that hand out of here. He's getting messed up. Poor little fingers. Okay, so again on the under little toesies. Alright, and then our crease on that back knee of again. Alright, so your knee crotch and your pad of your foot, both of check. Now for our hands, if you look at your hand, you have kind of a pad, just like your foot, that goes across your fingers and then a little bit on the base of your thumb. So if you kind of pull it back really hard, you'll see that this part is more white and the rest of it stays pink. So we're going to duplicate that on this little darling. We're going to give her a little touch of color across the pad, on the heel of her hand, and then on her thumb pad. And I'm only going to use the paintbrush on this one because it's just so tiny in here. I don't want to end up accidentally smearing it onto the fingers. If your paintbrush gets too full of paint, then just wipe it off on your towel or your workspace area so that it doesn't carry too much paint over to the next area. Alright, so I'm going to do a little zoom in on this so you can see that there is a clear blank spot in the middle, and we're going to do some more details in that, but this is just the shading in that spot. You don't want to just leave it like this. And then the other area that I'm going to do a tiny touch is at the pads of the fingers. Like on my fingers, that part is naturally more pink. And you don't want this to be too red. I've seen some dolls, too many dolls, that they look like they've just been dipped in bright red paint, and I'm not entirely certain I understand why, but it doesn't look realistic to me, so I try to stick with what looks real to me. So just a gentle color. You can see against the white towel that there's just a little bit of color on the pads. Now for the back of the hands, I'm going to give her knuckles a little bit of color as well, just a little bit, not too much thick paint here. It's again supposed to just create a little bit of color at the bend of the first knuckle. And then again at the second bend. And one more spot on the thumb, back here. We'll come in with some micro details in a little bit and actually really do some work on those fingertip areas. Now the last area is the elbow crotch. Nice and blendy, you don't want any straight lines. On her little wrists, I'm going to give her a little bit of a shadow right here where her hand flexes. I hope you can see that. Sometimes it's really hard to paint on a camera because you never know where your space runs out. You just kind of keep going and all of a sudden you realize you are not even on the screen. I'm just creating the depth and the highlights here, or I guess maybe the lowlights would be a better term for it. Just creating the dimension, giving it, accessorizing the details that are already in the kit. You can see if you look at this on a different angle that there is a rise right there, and so I shaded that so that you could see the depth on that particular little fault. This tiny little finger. Just a cute little thing. Alright, so we have one more hand, and then the details on this one, I'll catch up little Tolliver to the same step, and then we'll bake them and move on to the next step. Alright, so last little hand here for Tully. Tap, tap, tap across the top. Tap on the base of the heel and on the thumb. Let me blend that in. I have a mystery here that keeps sticking on things. Annoying little thing. Okay, so the last is the nail tips, or the fingertips rather. Add a little color for them. We're going to go on to the backs and give the little knuckles a little bit of color. And the second knuckle. And the little thumb knuckle. And the base of the finger shading like we did on the other one. A little bit around the wrist crease. And a little bit in the elbow crotch. Okay, this little hand is done. Oops, there's a spot there that got a little bright. Maybe the paint just sunk in there. Occasionally you find a kit that the paint just sinks in really well into some spots and not as well in others. That lined it up a bit. Okay. Right, so she is done, her little hand, with this particular layer. Alright, so I'm going to go on and bake her and finish Tolliver and catch them up so that I can bake both of them again. before we carry on with more color.